I find this video important to make and publish now because I feel most strongly about what I want to say now. But what will this video actually be about? Well, I've been doing a healthy amount of changing as a person and had a lot of time to self-reflect, which will also affect how I will be making my videos from now on and the content of those videos. I will still be making, videos about visual novels though, just to make that clear. I also just want to make it crystal clear to everyone what's been on my mind, how the content will change, and more importantly, why it changed, which will involve shortly revisiting every retrospective video up until this point, what I learned from making each retrospective, and basically how I've come to a certain realization for the better at the end, and what I plan to do going forward. Consider it a retrospective. Numero duo. I didn't have to make this video. I could have just gone and made another retrospective. But it's better to actively communicate what I'll be doing. So let's get straight into it. There's been a problem plaguing my retrospective videos since the beginning, and that problem is the ratio of content in my retrospective have mostly been recap, and the minority is original thought for review or analysis. For example, in my Subihebe retrospective, I didn't take any time to analyze it at all when I did have many things to say about it. The recap ratio is 95%. My most popular video as a recording is my You and Me and Her video, where some people have commented about this problem too, and I agree with them. Honestly, it's the same case for all the retrospectives. I've spent most of my time recapping the visual novel. This is a problem since obviously people could just play the visual novel instead of watching my video on it, so my video doesn't add much value and isn't worth watching compared to just playing the visual novel itself. And back then I was also aware of this problem, but I gave myself reasons to keep on going, there's no place on the internet, and specifically YouTube, that informs people the story of most visual novels. If you wanted a summary or recap for visual novels, it'd be hard to find if there is any. And other reasons such as, I'm adding value actually because the story is being rewritten by me and is in video form now instead of a visual novel. I completely disavow those reasons. I could easily refute them. They are stupid. I asked myself, what is the true reason my retrospectives were so recap heavy? And there is a much deeper reason, a very personal one, which has to do with the state that I was in when I started making those retrospectives. I realized my retrospectives were so recap heavy because of the way I produced my videos, and the way that I produced my videos was affected by my mental state, basically. I need to paint a picture of what I mean exactly, and I promise this will all be related to how I make my videos and how I'll improve after this. So it's 2020, it's the pandemic. I just finished doing my college entrance exams, which is the worst phase of my life, by the way, and then I got accepted to a university that was far away from where my parents lived. I had to move and live alone for the next 4 years, which made me terrified. I could barely take care of myself. I didn't know what to expect. So the first 2 years of living alone, I was really lonely. I had no friends and I stayed in my room all day. And it didn't help, many of the classes were online because of the pandemic too. So that is basically the perfect situation for me to really get into visual novels. I had tons of time on my hands. When I stumbled upon Subihebe, I became obsessed. It was the perfect time for me to read it, and it changed my life. I wanted to express my love for it, so I made a video about it. And I always had a YouTube channel where I've been uploading videos about whatever was on my mind, just random variety content since I was 12. I wanted to be an anime analysis channel like my idol, Trixie, aka the artist formerly known as Digibro, but I always felt my videos were terrible, and the ones I did upload never got any attention. But I did want it to become my living since I knew I was so passionate in it. I felt incredibly lost and just threw everything at the wall to see what stuck, basically, for a really long time. But I put in the effort to make the Subihebe video and saw it was actually getting attention. And since the majority of my subscribers now came for visual novel retrospectives, I figured that's where my channel must be heading. But even though I found some success in making visual novel retrospectives, it didn't bring me out of the situation I was in, a depressed shut-in. All it did was give me hope that I was going to go somewhere in life, that I had a way out from just studying and working, which I hated and never took seriously. I rejected all of my opportunities, like joining organizations or internships, just to focus on YouTube, because usually each video took months to make, so I thought of them as long-term projects. And let me tell you something. When you're depressed, you want to find worth in yourself. I found worth in making these videos, so I think subconsciously, the longer it took to make one of these videos, the better it was for me. When I'm depressed, I'm just sitting around, mostly just watching anime or playing games to momentarily distract me, give a fake sense of joy for a bit, be in an escapist fantasy. So when I was working on a video, it felt like I was actually doing something, and that's where the problem lies. I was inefficient at making the videos, because the process goes like this. I play the visual novel, but I always stop after like 1 hour to write and recap the last hour I just read, and it usually takes the same amount of time to read the visual novel. So basically 1 hour of reading translates to 1 hour of writing. I told you it was very inefficient. So Muv-Luv took me like 120 hours for me to play, basically. And then it gets onto recording and editing, which isn't really relevant. The point is, the writing of the video was the problem. I focused on recapping the visual novel from the beginning, and I did this as inefficiently as possible to stave off of my depression. And that is the main point of this video, basically. I think I changed as a person because my environment changed, and I'm not a depressed shut-in anymore. I can actually talk to people now. But that's skipping to the end. I want to go through my retrospectives, what I learned from making each, and how I got to this point. If you're not interested in that, just skip to the end for the conclusion, how I intend to change from now on. So for Subihibi, even though it changed my life and I had tons to say about it, I focused on just recapping it for the sake of a lack of long video essays on YouTube about visual novels, and recapping it was a surefire way to make it that long. What's funny is that it could have been way longer since it was my first. I used my phone to take notes of my thoughts, which made the script shorter than it could have been. But anyways, it's my first retrospective, so I expected there to be problems, like the way I wrote it or the presentation of the video or whatever, and hope to learn from it. But for The House in Fata Morgana, which also changed my life by introducing me to the beauty of insane characters and tragic stories, thanks random commenter who said I should cover it, I also just focused on recapping the whole story. This is when I realized using my phone to take notes was not good enough, so I wrote on my laptop directly, and to also write the script as I played the visual novel so it would be more accurate to the visual novel text. But that's where I was wrong-headed. I was really insecure about how inaccurate I was to recapping the visual novel when, in reality, like, who cares? Who cares about recapping it so heavily? Who cares about how accurate the video is to the story? The awkwardness of calling the white-haired girl as Where throughout the video was also stupid, and it was a hint I was like a really lonely and awkward person. I'm happy I was at least able to analyze it at the very end, but that's kind of it. It left zero impression on people. Sadly, this problem persisted onto Muv-Luv. This video is egregiously awful for a few reasons. First, I had no passion for it. I did enjoy reading it, but here's the thing with Muv-Luv. It's incredibly self-analytical. The characters just analyze themselves throughout the story, so I had zero meaningful input and continued recapping it because that was already the analysis. That's why it was just the worst retrospective I've ever made to this point. I enlisted it so less people would know that it exists, and I wasted like 3 or 4 months of work on it. Secondly, I also pissed off a bunch of fans because I didn't even bother to read Muv-Luv Extra, also because out of a lack of passion. The recap ratio is like 100% of this one because I just admitted I didn't have much to say at the end by recapping again what Takeru learned throughout. Maybe this is why I made the next one about Hanako from Katoa Shoujo, a character I loved when I first read it, and was only able to explain why after reflecting on my life up to that point. So this video is full of passion, basically, compared to the passionless Muv-Luv retrospective. Hanako represents the anxiety that crippled me throughout my life, and this video is one of my favorite videos I've ever made. It gets deep and personal, and it's sort of necessary to understand me as a person, which is why it is currently my channel trailer. It doesn't change the fact that I do still recap throughout the video, although I relate to Hanako so much that I did have a lot to say on a moment-to-moment basis, so it's like 60% recap maybe. And then You and Me and Her. Even though it is only 15 hours long compared to Subihibi's 30 hours long, the length of the retrospective video is longer just because I wrote it inefficiently. I wrote my own analysis at the end, but no one directly said anything about that, which means I would call that video a failure. It left no impression on anyone. Speaking of just messy writing, I skipped on this because I don't think anyone cares as much as me, but it reminded me of my Kodoma no Mocha retrospective, which I also made out of passion, but I don't like it too much because I was recapping many moments and it was messy with my messaging, even though I did have something poignant to say about it. The point I was making was that even though life is awful, the main character, Sana Kurata, is the source of happiness for the people around her, and when Sana becomes affected with how terrible life is, the people she affected helps her, so it's like this cycle of happiness. But yeah, no one seemed to get that, even though I wrote it in the video. So yeah, sorry for making a messy video. Let's just keep going. Swan Song, I don't even care about this one too much. I wasn't even really passionate about it after I read it, and I really had to reach for an analysis at the end about comparing characters and dichotomies. The recap ratio is like 95%, although it was a nice visual novel. So this one's interesting. The Rin's route retrospective is conflicting for me. I liked the fact that I tried to have a big grand point about how communication is impossible, but we try so hard to communicate anyways, which is something I'm passionate in, and I do love Rin as a character. But oh my god, it took me so long to get to that point. That video did not need to be nearly that long. This is when I really started doubting myself if I could keep recapping visual novels like this, because Rin's route is only like 5 hours long, but the video length is almost 2 hours long. Compared to Subihibi, from 30 hours to less than 2 hours is expected. I could at least excuse myself for recapping Swan Song because it was obscure, but Kato Shoujo is popular, so what's the point of recapping it? No surprise, but when I made the Rin video, I was also incredibly depressed for personal reasons. I was very lost and scared in real life, but I won't get into it. So for the Yume Miru Kusuri video, I knew I needed to change about how I approached my videos. This is when I started doing slightly better. This is when I think I started improving. After watching more video essays, YouTubers, I realized something. I realized why people were so engaged to their videos and not mine. And that was because people who watched it had enough engagement in the video to comment something about it. The videos are funny. To be more specific, there are more reasons to comment. The video has engaging moments or one central message that makes sense to people. I should have realized it sooner. A couple of people commented on my You and Mia Her video just because that Kanye clip was funny, so I put moments like that into my Yume Miru Kusuri video, like I went to Amsterdam and I even told people to specifically comment Aya was best girl to see who would do that. The point is, it actually worked. That said, this is like super psychopathic to do. Like in the future, if funny moments happen, they just happen naturally. I won't do it again for the sake of engagement, but I was actually proud of myself for making the Yume Miru Kusuri video. I inputted many more of my opinions and thoughts into it. Some parts were still boring since I set out to recap the story beat by beat, but it's still not too recappy now since I did have a lot to say about Yume Miru Kusuri. But it's not too recappy now since I did have a lot to say about Yume Miru Kusuri. Lastly, about sadistic blood, I have finally reached on a format that I am happy with. For Yume Miru Kusuri, I still wrote the script while watching the recording of playing the visual novel. This time I didn't even plan to write for sadistic blood, so I didn't record it, but the emotions I felt playing it was so intense I just had to write about it. I made the video in a similar way to Subihibi, using my phone to write my thoughts, and writing the script based off my thoughts made for a much more original video basically, an approach based off of analysis more so than recapping. So it's kind of funny how it all comes back around. The first way I did it with Subihibi was actually the best. I'm trying to improve as a writer as well, so I used like a vague thesis, body and conclusion structure and everything because it just fit for my purposes. It would be less messy and hopefully made more sense to people. That said, the flaw with Sadistic Blood is that it is so dark and gory, most people can't even stomach it, so I will cover a more wholesome visual novel next time. It shouldn't be too hard to find one less gory than Sadistic Blood. That said, I'm still gonna cover Euphoria one day. And that's where I am at today. It took me quite a while to realize my videos had a serious problem in them and figuring out how to change from that. I'm realizing this problem where the quality of the video is directly correlated with my mental state at the time I was making it. And I feel pretty okay right now, so that's pretty good. I think the video also needs a healthy amount of passion for the visual novel itself. Here's another thing when it comes to changing my content on YouTube, or really anyone else, is that it's incredibly difficult to do. Most people don't find themselves in a position where they have to satisfy an audience consistently, except for YouTubers and other influencers, so there's no clear what's best to do, no best practices or a guidebook. Besides that, once your audience wants one specific thing from you, it's understandable you wouldn't want to change. People really only come to a YouTube channel for one topic specifically, and creators have to find a formula that fits. It's also difficult to get any constructive criticism. Comments do it sometimes, but it's hard to know who to trust, as well as to know what's best for everyone. I gained a few hints from my own comments, but I mostly got it from analyzing other YouTubers' content, and also being in the mindset so that I am willing to change. I do believe going forward that this new format is the best for everyone. I even plan to recreate some of my old retrospectives to this new format. The visual novels that I covered before, they deserve way more than my boring-ass recaps. I still have many more things to say on The House and Fata Morgana and Muv-Luv, and especially Subihibi, that I am most motivated to do. Although I would prefer to focus on making videos for new visual novels, and even broaden my horizons to things I'm passionate in. So to conclude, and to make sure my point gets across, I had this issue with the way I wrote my long retrospective videos where I recapped most of the time. So from now on, I'll try to have much more original thoughts put into the video now that I've found a writing process that I'm comfortable with. Even though I'm confident in changing for the better, I'm still a flawed person. I'm not perfect, but I still want to keep improving. And to do that, I want you guys to hold me accountable when I make a bad video. Be honest with what you think. Don't hold back, so I know for sure and do better next time. And yeah, that's all I have to say. I made this video all about myself and my content, so sorry about that, but I thought it was important to clearly say what I intend to do from now on. Thank you very much for watching to the end, and look forward to my next video, which, by the way, might not come out for like 8 months. I'm kind of busy right now. I'm juggling a few things. So the point is, just be patient. I still have all intentions of making like YouTube videos until I die. I love expressing my thoughts. I love writing. I love editing. That will never change. And I love visual novels. So yeah, visual novels forever. Consume everything. And goodbye.